Hello. The world is a sloppy place. That's one thing I wanted to say, if anybody doesn't know that. Um, I'm kind of a worrywart as a person, and people who know me well will tell you that. I'm always sort of anxiety ridden, looking at how life is constantly falling apart. You got to attend to things because nothing comes out perfectly. When I'm not working on my job, I I'm working on my house, cleaning the house and fixing the house and trying to the yard and the car and the kids constantly need attention, and the details of everything as it sort of sloppily falls apart. And that's the way I see my life in general. I just always have to be busy doing things to try to make things not fall apart so much. It's like the third law of thermodynamics. Things fall apart, and your life is falling apart. If you're an anxiety ridden person, which I admit that I am, then I'm constantly looking after some detail that I have to go to and fix. And that also finances. I've had terrible finances over the years, sometimes my own fault, but mostly things outside my ability to fix. Like the economy fell apart, and I fell apart along with the economy at one point. And I had to like hustle and work hard and scrounge in order to just keep my family together and keep my head above water and so forth. But because of just hard work and being very anxiety ridden, I was able to fix things. And I know people have to understand that that's the way the world is, and I need to understand this. Everything's changing constantly, but everything is a little bit imperfect. Everything is a little bit sloppy. It's a sloppy world, you know. And I point this out in this political season to people because I'm hearing too much of this crazy talk based on very little factual information about how the big government and everybody is after you. And if you get a big picture on things, it's never been perfect. Neither has big business. The very short period of time from about 1954, right after World War II, till about 1975 or so, the working people had a little bit of an upper hand over the businesses. But the businesses, they adapted, and now they again have the upper hand over the working person. And the government, as a institution, has always been a little bit sloppy. There's Ronald Reagan was right in some ways. I admit the bureaucracy. Once you put a bureaucracy in, it doesn't go away by itself. It just layers on top of another bureaucracy, which becomes more and more expensive. But on the other hand, I don't know if you guys recall, but Al Gore did this efficiency program during the Clinton administration to get rid of excess bureaucracy, and it saved probably $1 trillion since that time. My point would be that people are always whining about making the good the enemy of the perfect. The people think that the government has no good use because it's wasteful and it's sloppy, and it has the corruption and so forth in it. And I'm going to tell you right now, every single aspect of life has a certain amount of waste and corruption to it. My company cheats me. I hope they know my company's not watching this, but my friends, when it comes to a dollar, you'd be surprised how many people will just cheat you on a dollar. I've had friends that I no longer are my friends who would pick my pocket had they had the opportunity. There's no matter what type of life that you're living, what aspect of life that you're living, you're going to find good numbers of people, a certain percentage that are crooked. And there's going to be a certain percentage that are it's wasteful, and the waste comes from ignorance and stupidity. It always happens. It's constant. What we are seeing right now, though, in this current political climate is that people have decided that since the government is a little bit sloppy, we should just do away with it all, do away with everything, you know, do away with helping the poor and the sick and the hungry and the homeless and the all that stuff, you know. And I heard some guy recently tell me that if a certain candidate that's currently running for office in the federal level did not win, that we would have a revolution. See, because if it's not exactly the way that he thinks it ought to be, and if it's not perfect the way he wants it to be, then the whole thing has to be destroyed. That's what we're at that point. And that baffles me, the whole concept. We're talking about a guy, and I've heard this from several people. We're talking about people who make much more money than I do. I mean, this guy probably made $90,000 to $100,000 a year. He lives in a $250,000 home. He has two little children in grade school, and he drives a pickup truck. He has a boat. His wife has a car, and he's complaining that we need a revolution. Now, wait a minute now. Why would he ever want a revolution in that situation? That, once you light a fire, a revolution, and he's talking, I asked him, what do you mean by a revolution? And he says to me, like shooting. We need to take down big government and big business. And I mean, with guns and stuff. And he says, yes. Now, wait a minute. Think about that for a second. He has a nice big house and two little kids in grade school, and he's ready to start a revolution with a shooting war. Do you understand that once you light a fire like that, you don't know where it's going to burn? It could just burn your house down. Maybe the revolution, coming from where a lot of people are from, if they look at him and his big house in the country, they would think that he's the first one that's got to get up against the wall here. He's the one who's the big shot that's making all the money, in some people's opinion. He doesn't like his taxes. He doesn't like people who are lazy and living on food stamps and welfare, he says. He doesn't like the way that the government perpetrates its own self-interest by the congressmen and the senators making millions of dollars and doing things only for themselves. People, you need to understand something. And I know I'm wasting my breath to a lot of people, but this is nothing new. This is nothing even that hasn't gone back to the very beginning of the United States of America. What we need is efficiency, sure. More efficiency would be a wonderful thing. A wonderful thing. Matter of fact, if I were going to Congress, I would probably write a law that would be starting a Department of Efficiency in the federal government. That would work through the president. Under the president, they would have these people that would work on commission to figure out ways to get rid of redundancy and waste and fraud in the government, and then put together a package that they would be reviewed by the Congress on every 2 years or so. And then the Congress would vote it in or out. But the Department of Efficiency would then make a commission. The people in the department make a commission on how much money they save the government. See, that would be a nice law to pass, but see, to just throw the whole government out and get rid of the Constitution and people don't understand that the United States of America is a wonderful country. It's maybe the greatest country that has ever been in the world. And the other countries around the world look at the United States and model themselves after the United States, and they found out that once they do that, they have greater peace and prosperity in their own countries by modeling our Constitution. And somehow, people are wringing their hands and, oh no, because I do this in life all the time. But one thing I never want to do is just destroy everything that we is good and start over again from scratch. That's just it baffles me. There's people who believe that everybody in the government is corrupt, and therefore we must put term limits 2 years on the congressman, or else turn everybody else over in the Senate, and we ought to jail some of the candidates because they made money while they were in office. And calm down a little bit. That's what I have to tell you. Yeah, it can't. It's not perfect. I'm not arguing that it's perfect. You know, the election is going to be stolen, they say. No, the election probably may have some faults in it, maybe not many. But there were other elections. I argue that George W. Bush stole the election from Al Gore. That's very possible. You know, but you live with it because, you believe it or not, your momentum has to move forward. And right now, the pessimism that seems to be permeating the many of these people in the country, being spurned on by political pundits, mostly on AM radio, who will tell you that the government can't do anything and all that kind of stuff. They need to understand that nothing is going to be that smooth in the world. It's going to be sloppy and disorganized and wasteful, and there's going to be a certain amount of corruption, and I don't care what organized institution you're talking about, it's always the case. So thank you very much, I want to say.